I have been asked to retell the story. It is the death of Moto Gaheris, the rise of his son, Moto Chagatai, and the end of the curse of the Moto. On a certain day in Shiromoto, Moto Chagatai calls the family daimyo forward and tells them of deep and dark secrets. Moto Gaheris, the great Khan, has been wounded previously and is soon to die, perhaps within hours. Chagatai calls forth the daimyos, primarily to explain the one most important thing that curses them, which is the curse of the Moto. In the burning sands, a tribe known as the Ujikai believed and worshipped the lords of death, and as part of their instructions, went through the sands, burning sands, and claimed the lives of all who stood in their way. But it was only until one day, when Lady Shinjo herself ventured into the burning sands, they suffered their most humiliating moments, the moments of defeat. Ujikai had never known them. Seeking redemption, Lady Shinjo offered them a chance for redemption. The Ujikai took upon this and changed their names to Moto and followed Lady Shinjo at that point. But the lords of death were gods, and they were easily angered. They required blood, and they sought revenge. Moto Chagatai, Moto Chen, Yuchi Rinje, and the half-Naga Akasha were brought together to formulate a plan to end the curse once and for all. It was an ambitious plan. Some would call it foolish. Some would even call it suicidal. But he did it nonetheless. Upon the moment of Moto Gaheris' death, Akasha opened the spirit portal to the spirit realms, where Moto Gaheris and the Lords of Death would exist at one finite moment. A young man was seen riding upon the desert plains, taking his giant scimitar and slaying all who stood in his path. He reveled in the battle, and it was not until he was nearly ambushed and fell that Moto Chagatai and Moto Chen rode by and saved them, but they could not mention their names. This was their father, Moto Gaheris, the great Khan, and his soul was now in the spirit, young and healthy. Soon, however, after they reunited, they heard a great clattering sound coming from up behind them. It sounded as if 10,000 skeletons were clattering their teeth, coming for them. It was then, over the burning horizon, that they saw 10 giant skeletal figures. The Lords of Death had come to claim Moto Gaheris' soul. They partook of a great scream, and an undead army arose, consisting of hundreds and thousands of undead. Moto Chen and Gaheris withdrew their scimitars and began to slay the skeletons one by one. Moto Chagatai himself rode up to the Lords of Death and met their bodyguard, the Dark Moto himself, Moto Sume. It was at this point that the Lords of Death were surprised, for they had come claiming only Moto Gaheris' soul, but they did not expect to find his son. Such a prize could not be missed. Moto Sume challenged Moto Chagatai to go argue. Moto Chagatai mocked the Moto Sume, claiming the Dark Moto was nothing more than a figment, a weak Moto. It was at this point that Chagatai dropped his weapon. Moto Sume, seizing upon the opportunity, rushed forward and struck. But it was at this point that Chagatai knew that Moto Sume had made two choices. One, he was not as slow as he seemed, and two, he was much smarter than anyone thought. As Moto Sume charged, Moto Chagatai stepped aside, missing the blade, and drew his wakizashi and then cut Moto Sume in the midsection, thus slaying the Dark Moto. The Lords of Death chattered their teeth as they were surprised that their bodyguard had fallen, prepared to exact ultimate revenge for the death of Chagatai. Chagatai held his hands in front of the gods, the Lords of Death himself, and made a bargain. The Lords of Death were forgotten, no longer worshipped, hence they had no power. But who would notice 10 gods in Rokugan, a land where mortals can become gods? The 10 Lords of Death began to talk among themselves. And then they agreed to Chagatai's terms. The curse of the Moto was lifted. But in exchange, the unicorn will forever worship the Lords of Death. Moto Chagatai and Moto Chen soon reappeared back on the plains in front of Shiramoto. Chagatai himself began laughing as Chen turned to Chagatai, and he had made a promise to the lively Akasha to buy her a gift. And that's the story of the last trial.